Hey, everybody, welcome to Think Business Exclusives, getting to the soul of business. I'm really looking forward to talking to Paul Cuschieri. Paul, you've known me my whole life. I've known you just as long as I've been alive. And so it's always fun and it's special for me to interview somebody who, is just doing incredible things, but also is an incredible human being. And in an industry that is really, really hard. And I'm going to give your bio in a second, but you're in Hollywood, you're in LA, you're a producer, you're a creative, you're a director. You're doing so many incredible things. Your recent movie, Cutthroat City, that you produced and wrote, came out in 2020. I mean, I could list, dozens and dozens of things, which I will as we continue to talk. But you're 36 years old. You move out to Hollywood to follow your dreams, to kind of just make a bold move, and I want to talk about that. And I want to talk about that is, because I think in today's world, there is instant gratification is too much of a thing, and I think people have a really hard time with delayed gratification. And you have lived through delayed gratification, right? These last couple of decades, as you are seeing tremendous success right now. But if we rewind that, it didn't start off that way, right? So not that you didn't have the talent, but you needed to plant the seeds.
Right.
So thanks for, talking to me today and the Think community. I appreciate it. I'm going to jump into a lot of the stuff that you've done as we continue to talk, but you've been in Hollywood for 21 years, right? And so I want to go back to when you moved there. You're 36, but before that, I want to go kind of even rewind from there. And so I want you to take me back to your furthest memory with, growing up, where there was a seed that was planted that gave you the drive when you were 36 to actually make the move.
All right. That's a good question. First of all, thanks so much for having me. I'm getting such a thrill, and I'm so proud of you, Jonathan.
Thanks.
Context. Yes, I did grow up with you and your family, and I watched you grow up literally from a baby. You're the cutest kid in the world. Everyone said, Jonathan, such a cute kid. You have a beautiful family.
I wish I had the hair
as we did.
Yeah.
It's called success at your age.
Yeah.
But anyway, as you knew our family, we had every Friday night there was something going on. We had all our uncles, we had cops and priests and all sorts of different characters would come over, and they would smoke cigarettes and tell stories. That's what they did. So all the kids, this is back when you separated children world from adult world. They intermingle now. Back then, it was like, get the heck out of here. We're with the adults. But I was that kid when we went upstairs. I'd always come down and just watch him and listen to him tell stories. And it was just such a joy to hear them tell stories. They're all so great at it. And just to hear them laughing and everything. And then as I got older, I watched a lot of great films when I was young. My mother and father would make me watch Otto Preminger or Frank Capra or John Ford. And at first you kick and scream because you don't want to watch The Cardinal when you're 12.
Right.
But then next thing you know, you're really digging it. So I was really exposed to some pretty good films when I was young and didn't know it. Fast forward to when I was in my 30s, you get out of college. What do you know when you're in your 20s? You think you're supposed to do one thing and you're taking this path. I was never happy. I always did want to be a writer. They say there's two things that will get you to act: inspiration and desperation. Yeah. I just was not happy anymore, and it got to the point where, and also you can probably know, in a big family coming from the Midwest, it's hard to leave home.
Yeah.
It would be hard to go to Chicago. A lot of talented people from Michigan go to Chicago, or they go around somewhere in the Midwest. You didn't hear about a lot of people going to California, especially with the whole Midwest kind of like everyone from LA is crazy and it's awful there and there's earthquakes. And it's so hard to make it in that business, all of which are true. But, you know, I remember telling my mom, because I had wanted to move to California for some time. And, you know, there's just never time to move. Like, oh, you can't, well, John's getting married, or so-and-so is doing this, you know, Mary Megan lost a tooth. You know, like eventually it was my birthday. My mom said, what do you want? I said, Mama, I want to get the hell out of here. And for the first time, she said, I'll talk to your father, you know, and that was it. I left on my birthday. So, and I made that drive, and I didn't know anybody. I did. Yes, I did.
Wow. You know, it's so interesting. It's so interesting. You know, so you're 36. You're asking your mom, who, you know, your parents were two of my favorite people in the world. Can I move to California? You know, and today, I don't think kids would ask their parents. They would just tell their parents, or they would move. Yeah. And so, right. So what was it about that permission in hindsight that you needed to kind of like spread your wings?
Well, the good question. In our family, and there are some families like this where, you know, we were very just tightly knit, and I did need their blessing. Could I have gone? Yes, but it had something happened, and you know, my father did pass not long after I left. Had he passed without getting his blessing, that would have hurt me forever. Yeah. You know, so I just I wanted to make sure, like, look, I'm going to be okay. I need you guys to be cool with this. And as parents who, you know, their job, they love their kids. Of course, they want their kids to live close to them and have kids and have this community of family in the same area. That was their dream. I was popping a bubble in their dream.
Right.
So it was hard for them. But I think they finally kind of acquiesced that, to wait a second, this guy's really miserable.
Right.
We better let him go. Yeah.
But Paul, let me ask you this. I want to kind of stay on this topic for a minute. You know, I want to talk about kind of the spiritual journey of that, right? Because I think it's so hard for so many people to break lineage, right? Listen, I wanted to move to Chicago right after I sold my internet company, and my dad said no, so I didn't, right? So I understand exactly what you're talking about. Right. I felt like I needed his blessing, and I didn't get it, so I didn't go. But what is it about the spiritual journey that you experienced from that experience of the, you know, saying, hey, it's, you know, you have our permission, and then how did that elevate your consciousness to kind of say, okay, I'm going for it?
Well, these are good and deep questions. I guess I would answer it like this: with something with family, we're very trained sort of in our culture to follow your bliss. You got to, you know, just do what makes you happy. To be honest, I think that's kind of crappy advice. You know, and we're told in high school, you can do anything. You can't. I know that's good on a bumper sticker, but you know, to do anything, you need talent, you need hard work, you need a few breaks, you need a lot of different things. Yeah. And sometimes then it doesn't even happen. So as far as like, you know, following your bliss, I was kind of raised with, you know, you have to consider your family, consider other people. So I was very, you know, I just thought about my family, what it would do to them. And it did. It did hurt my father just a little bit, but the time had come. But it was able to help me so much to be able to have to say, look, this part of my life is over, and now I got a new part of my life that's starting, and to be able to just do that with a fresh mind and a clear heart, that really freed me up to, you know, really kind of spread my wings as soon as I landed, instead of saying, oh, shit, what are, you know, my family, is they're going to be pissed at me, you know, like, right. And also the truth is, when you get here, and I did move out here later in life, which was a good thing. And you talk about delayed gratification. I am so glad I moved to LA later in life. I would have never made it in my 20s, never.
Yeah.
Too many distractions, and it just was good that I went when I did. Plus, there is a ticking clock in the town. There's perception. But one of the things that was also kind of refreshing when I moved here, I wasn't alone. The first job that I got my first job was on the Paramount lot. I was catering. But I was working with a bunch of people in their 30s and a bunch of people in their 20s. And there's some people in their 40s. And they're all still chasing their dreams. So it's not like in Detroit, if you're tending bar when you're 36, you might have made a bad career move.
Right.
Unless you own the bar.
Right.
There, everyone is kind of chasing the brass ring. So at least when I came here, and it was really it was nice to be around kindred spirits, people that left all their homes and doing the same thing.
Yeah, I love that. I want to go back to the porch with the cops and the priests and the uncles and the aunts, because for me, we grew up across the street on Westcott Crescent Circle, so. Your house, to me, I want to talk about the energy of all of that and your house, because to me, I still have fond memories and tap into the energy of just growing up on Westcott Crescent Circle, growing up across the street from you. I can't think of, and your family, I can't think of my growing up without thinking of your family and the energy of it. We're a Jewish family living across the street from Irish Catholic family. So my first exposure to milk and chocolate cake and ham sandwiches were all at your house. Your family used to bring over Christmas stockings and presents and say, hey, when Santa Claus came last night, they dropped this off for you guys too. Right. So and so the energy of your house with 6 kids and family always was like so much fun. It was so much fun to be around and to be across the street from it. And your parents always seemed so like relaxed with all the tumult. So what was it like growing up, with in that house?
John, it was awesome. Yeah. It was so exciting. My mom and dad, they were strict, but there was a lot of love there. But I know this is a punchline, but in our neighborhood, there was a lot of diversity, but it was such a cool way to grow up. I mean, I was exposed to so many characters, of which your mom was quite the character, as you remember,
My mom was a character,
she was a character, but I was a paper boy, remember too. So I got, it was me, but our house in particular, we had cops and priests, and my dad had some friends who were my dad was a tough guy, and he had some tough guys who worked downtown. And so, we had all walks of life kind of come through our doors. And, my mom was sort of that common denominator that just opened the door for them and said, you're welcome here. And as a kid, it was awesome, and there was always something to do. I had really good brothers and sisters. We fought like everyone, you fight like cats and dogs. But it was, I had a real wonderful childhood. And it's interesting because their stories that I heard at the dinner table when I was a little boy, they still find their way to my writing, and these characters and their limps and their patches and their mannerisms. I use all of them, and it was really a neat way to grow up, and it really was very influential in forming me as a storyteller.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. Talking about let's talk about storytelling some more. Nobody knows how to storytell better than. Nothing tells a better story than a movie, a TV show, a well-written podcast, not mine, yours, And so, the art of storytelling, let's talk about that. And, and how you bring a story and then you write this beautiful story. And then you're in an industry where you then have to convince other people that your story is worth listening to and worth creating into something that will influence and impact, a community or a country, et cetera. So what is that process like when you take something, because you're taking these personalities of how you grew up, building a story with pieces of that and your own life, and then you have to go sell the story to other people.
Right.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a quick story about storytelling. So, you have a lot of people say I can't write. I tell them, well, if you can talk, you can write, you know? So now some people just aren't very good at telling stories, and it's because they don't know how to tell a story, you know?
Right.
If they could tell a story verbally, then it's just a matter of putting it on paper. I was very good at telling a story. I didn't know what the hell I was doing otherwise. I moved out to LA, and I'll tell you how I got my break. I brought 2 scripts with me, wrote them on Word. They're both about 150 pages. And, you know, everyone in this town, like actors got their headshots, writers have their scripts. So if you meet someone and that takes a shine to you and is lucky enough to say, hey, send it to my office. So I met a producer named Jon Dwoskin. He had a deal at Miramax at the time. And he ran Sony's digital platform, very successful, did some really big movies. But I was catering at a party, and it's interesting because I always, in pro football, Bill Belichick, coach of the Patriots, has that saying, do your job. Yeah. So just whatever you do, do your job. So I'm a real hard worker. I happen to be working very hard, and he noticed that. Like, you know, who are you? What are you doing? What are you doing out here? So I told him to be a writer, and he said, you know, send these scripts to the office. Send what you have to the office. So I sent him my 2 scripts, and didn't hear from him for 3 months. And I finally got a call from his assistant, and he said, Paul, John wants to talk to you about your scripts. And so some of the other folks here. I said, okay, my first meeting, great. So he said, I'm going to give you a tip. He said, when you come into our office, before you call and you ask, say, hey, I got a meeting there at 2:00. Who wants coffee? All right, there's a Starbucks downstairs, and you bring people coffee. So I said, okay. So before the meeting, I called. Of course, like 9 people ordered coffee. It's like, so I'm walking there like the DoorDash guy or something, you know. So I brought everyone coffee. So I have this meeting, and it's not just John. They literally had all their execs. There's probably 10 people at this table, this long table, and I'm at one end, John's at the other end, all these, and the assistants are taking notes. And Jonathan, we laughed for an hour. You say, well, what are you doing here? You know, like what's telling me about what's it? You know, we're talking about, because there was a culture clash, you know, coming from the Midwest, obviously. But we finally got around to the scripts. They said, so come down, and they said, so tell me, how did you figure that? Like, what did you do? Why'd you write on this? What'd you write on? I said, well, I put it on Word. And they said, well, you know, there's a program for screenwriting. I said, yeah. And they said, well, why didn't you use it? I said, well, because I don't have the money right now to buy the program. I just haven't got it. Or like, get them the program. Like, this is 150 pages. It's like nothing's gonna even get read if it's over 105. I didn't know that, you know, like, yeah, you didn't know that. And then they were like, look at the margins, like, you know, like, how did you do this? And I said, well, you know, I cribbed the script, you know, I just got from the library, and they said, look, you're embarrassing yourself. This is embarrassing. No, you'll never go anywhere in this town. But we all agree that if you learn how to write, you have the most original voice that we've read in the last 5 years.
Wow.
And if you figure this out, you're going to be successful in this town. And I said, I appreciate that. And if you put me on the path to success, I won't forget it. And Jon Dwoskin to this day is one of my best friends. So I had a gift to be able to tell a story, to be able to write dialogue and stuff. But there are templates. There are, you know, books. You have to study the mythical journey. You have to. I'm not saying read Save the Cat or do this, but they all help. You have to. And then it's interesting because the more you read and the more you write, the more you see that, oh my God, there is structure here. Here's the turn. Here's the first act break. Here's I call it the clothesline. It's like page 55. You know, so, and then if you look at every movie, they're all the same.
Yeah.
The way the turns are, the way that the refusal of the call, it's just really interesting. So I never knew anything about how to write, even though I could write. Yeah. So I really had to take what I had, which is my skill, and then really figure out. And then once you crack the code, and it's easy to do. It's not easy to do well. So that's the thing. But, you know, learning how to do it has happened. Yeah.
I love that. First of all, I love that story. Congratulations. What a great compliment to be sitting there with 9 people that what an original voice you have, validating your decision, right? I mean, to even pick up and move. So that's great. So I love hearing that story. But as you're talking, I'm thinking of, the movie A League of Their Own, when Tom Hanks says to Gina Davis when she's about to quit, it's the hard that she says it's too hard, and he says it's the hard that makes it great, right? And and today we are in a world where the average person stays at a job for 2 to 3 years. The average person who starts a podcast doesn't get past the 7th to 10th episode. People, you look at a resume and it's skipping all over the place. And when it gets hard, a lot of times, instead of facing the hard and working through the hard, people give up. And so I want to know kind of, how did you tap into a deeper level of awareness, a deeper level of, grit? Because a lot of people could have heard that and been like, let their ego get in the way and say, and walked out and been pissed, right? But those who kind of hear it as, hey, the universe is giving me something right now. Right.
Yeah.
And so now I have to dig deeper into the next layer of myself to do the work to then get there. So just talk about how you kind of tapped into your tenacity, your grit, to learn what you needed to learn.
Right. A couple of things with that. Number one, quitting was just not an option for me. Because really I couldn't do anything else. I'm just not very good at anything else. Also, I really and truly love what I do. Now, just because you love something doesn't mean you're going to be any good at it. As far as the persistence, I will say, if you're good at it and you love it, you gotta play the long game. And that's what I was willing to do. People don't have patience, especially in this culture. We're very, instant gratification, or we think, I'm going to give this a try. When I hear someone, I just thought I'd give this a try. Right. You're not going to make it. Yeah. It's not going to happen. Yeah. So you gotta go all in. And I was all in because I came here a little later in life. I had no safety net. But to be honest, I liked that pressure. There's something about, having, doing something without a net that is exciting. And, and I made this choice. One thing about this town that I kind of noticed is there's a funny line. And I heard a politician say this when he was elected. He went to Congress and at his first term, he just said, "What am I doing here?" Yeah. And then after a few terms, he got there and he said, what are these people doing here? Yeah. So I kind of feel the same way when I first met him. What am I doing here? Now I'm like, okay, you guys go home. All right. But I think this generation, very spoiled. I was on the cusp. I used to write at the library. You live at a library. Just think of, having to write a script on a typewriter, how many changes there are, and how much research you have to do. Yeah. Now we never have to leave home. From a technical standpoint, filmmaking has gotten a lot easier. I think it's made writing lazier. I think it's made filmmaking lazier. But I think culturally, it's also made us, I think it's made us easier to quit also, I don't know. It just was never an option for me. Yeah.
No, I hear you. But I want to stay on this topic for a bit. Sure. In 2008, The Atlantic wrote an article by Nicholas Carr, and it's called "Is Google Making Us Stupid? What the Internet is Doing to Our Brains?" Right. And so how we grew up, as we're talking about growing up, right? I'm 49. So this is now, we're going back almost 50 years on Westcott Crescent Circle. I mean, there were no cell phones. We had nothing to do but go outside and play. There was like we had a big wheel club. I mean, it was like, we were, doing kid stuff. If anybody's listening to this, they know what I'm talking about. And so now technology is rewiring our brains, where delayed gratification, reading more than 2 pages, is very difficult for people today. So it's harder for people to concentrate and to say, hey, this is my dream. This is my passion. This is what I'm good at. And then say, wait, I got to wait 20 years, 15 years. I got 12 years. I was planning on, retiring in 4, like, right?
Mhm.
So,
Yes.
and so what advice do you give people today who want it, but no, they really got to work for it. They've got to tap into delayed gratification. And then what does a small win look like?
Uh, a small win, you'll only see the small win.
Uh-huh.
No one else is going to see it. The small win, in a weird way, and I hate saying this, is just to finish. You'd be surprised how many people, they just start something just to finish. So I started the script, I didn't finish it. I think anyone that just finishes it, that's a victory. This town is a business. That took me a minute to learn. You have to, like, don't let society and culture define what success is. What is a win for you? I had goals for myself that I really wanted to reach, and I still want to reach. But I think those goals also need to be realistic, even for a beginning writer. Say, look, I saw this documentary. It was really interesting. I love music of the '70s, and it was the one that Alison Eastwood did on the Eagles. And the Eagles, they had Glenn Frey and Don Henley had great jobs. They were in they were in a band. Geffen signed them. They were touring with Linda Ronstadt. Cushy job, making money. In the middle of it, they told Geffen, "We want to quit. We want to do our own music." And he said, "Are you crazy?" And they said, "Well, we're just not happy." So they put the Eagles together because Glenn Frey, who's from Detroit, talked to Bob Seger, and Seger said, "Well, you got to write your own music." And he said, "Well, we don't know how to write." And he said, "Well, you better learn." And he said, "Well, what if we write songs that are crappy?" And he said, Bob Seger said, "Well, you will. You're going to write a bunch of crappy ones, and then you're going to write one that's good.
Yeah.
And then you're going to write another one's that's good. And then when you write 6 others that are good, you're going to have an album." So it was like just starting with that, like, this is what I need to do to start. And then, I don't know, it was very, for me, that's what I said. I'm going to learn how to do this, and I'm going to get one script right.
Yeah.
And then once I crack the code, then I can work on these other genres and do other things and expand my writing in different ways.
Yeah. I love that. I want to talk about cracking the code because, as a business coach, sometimes I feel like I'm working with clients, and I'm not saying this to impress, just to impress upon,
Yeah.
I work with solopreneurs to Fortune 500, 100 companies, everything in between. And what I find is people have a hard time seeing what's hidden in plain sight. And if you really kind of, rewind it and reverse engineer it, there's kind of a code and a formula that's pretty simple for everything. Like you said earlier, every movie kind of follows the same kind of formula. And so how did you, but until we kind of do a lot and experience a lot, then we have to realize, oh, wait, that code was there. That formula was there the whole time. I just had to do the work to understand the code and how the nuance of the code and the formula works for me. And so when you began to crack the code, how did you then begin to understand how the code worked for you and your DNA?
Right. Here's the frustrating thing about that, and this is why a lot of writers fail, or at least this is what I think, or a lot of people in any industry, because if I say, and people said this to me, okay, here's the formula, read this book, and this is proven, like, and you can read from Michael Medved to, whoever is writing about screenwriting, and they will, to the page, tell you, dissect stories that are how it is. But then comes along a film like Memento or Pulp Fiction, these things that just shatter the mold. And then they point to that, say, well, they didn't do that. Well, a couple things. No, they didn't, and God bless them for it. But that's exception to the rule. Mm-hmm. And guys like Tarantino and Fincher and the guy Nolan or whoever, they're touched by the finger of God. And I can tell you this also, though, they know that code better than anybody. Mm-hmm. Even to be able to do that, you still have to understand the structure of storytelling. Right. So for me, it was interesting because I really, when you see it unwind, when you take a movie like The Matrix where they say one of the big thing in mythic storytelling is the refusal of the call. When it's the red pill or blue pill, or it's that time, like it's when the character says, I'm thinking about doing this. Right. It's in every movie, I'm thinking about doing this. Or no, think of Rocky. We want you to fight the champ. No, I'm not going to. It wouldn't be a good fight. I'm just a club fighter. There's always that refusal of the call. Okay, in every movie, there's the refusal. So then you start looking for it. Now you understand why it works and how it pushes you into the second act. There are people that are executives in this town that will go right to page 24. And if it's not a new location, if there's not a bus, a plane, or a train or something, they know that this writer doesn't know what he's doing, because there should be flight in that second act. So I'm not saying in every second act of every screenplay it has to be like this, but you have to understand why that works, why it's a template, and why you should. If you understand that, then maybe you can zig when they zag. You know what I mean? Right. So that's why it was helpful for me. You're not able to go unless you're supremely gifted, which even the gifted ones, they know.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But what you're talking about also, this is the power of storytelling in the movies and television, et cetera. The formula is still the same in business. It's still the same messaging in commercials, how you sell your services. There's always a guide. There's always a hero. There's always a victim. There's always a villain. There's always turmoil. Right. Yes. There's always, here's what success looks like. Here's what failure looks like. Here's the action plan. Here's if you go off the plan. I mean, so it's storytelling is something that I think everybody needs to, raise their awareness on, because we're all storytellers.
We're all storytellers. It's one of the myths of this town too, is that this town is a business, but it's not. It's a business on crystal meth. I mean, this is a town that they do everything by the metrics. They do everything by the numbers, and this is a copycat town, but they know how to make movies. They know how to make money, a lot of it. They look at formulas. They look at everything. So, the idea that, yes, there are a lot of artists out here, but one of the things you learn real fast, no one's interested in your art. All right. This town is not interested in making the world a beautiful place. This is a business. Studios want to make money. If you can make a great film, great. Right. They'd be happier if it makes money, but anyway.
Well, and you know what though, Paul, every business is like that. Every business needs to make money in order to stay open the next day. And so, what I sometimes I work with people and they have a hard time kind of marrying their spiritualness with making money, right? And what I always say to them is, it's okay to be a conscious capitalist. You can, the more money you make, the more people you can help. And so there's nothing wrong with making money or a lot of money, right? So so I love that. I love that. I want to talk about a piece of storytelling that I think is important, that I think will resonate with people, which is kind of the character, when the character can actually zoom out and be an observer of themselves, right? Where you're seeing those types of perspective. And I think that's where one of the things people love about movies is seeing themselves in the characters, right? Giving them the extra boldness or confidence. So can you just kind of talk about that for a minute as you storytell and writing a character, and also as you kind of write, how do you kind of zoom out as an observer to kind of go back to Westcott Crescent Circle and re-observe at your age today, what you heard back then with maybe different ears today?
Right. Another good question. I think, first of all, the most important thing, a lot of writers will say this, and you got to love your characters. And if you love your characters, to love them, you have to know them. You got to know them better than anything. You're creating them. So for me, I do create some characters, but most of the characters I create, I know. Like, I knew the guy growing up, or I knew someone that my father or my uncle or whoever talked about. I tell you, your mom has appeared in a couple scripts, you know, like, but I know how,
Yeah.
I know their mannerisms. I know their tics.
Right.
So, and you have to love them. I know that's hard, especially if you're writing a script about a serial killer, but even then you have to know your character. If you
Yeah.
know your character, then you as a writer can step out. And then there's obviously a wish fulfillment aspect to a lot of storytelling, because people, they want to know what that's like. They want to
Yeah.
know what it's like to walk into a room and do this, that, or the other thing. And that's where it can get kind of fun. There is, in storytelling, there's a portion of the script called fun and games. And that's like, if you think about Spider-Man, when he learns to use his powers or something,
Yeah.
you know, you have this sequence, and then it's fun to be creative. But even then, you have to base it on what is this character's experiences, what he would like. It's not always what you would like.
Yeah.
Sometimes it is. It's what he would like or she would like.
Yeah.
You know? So
I love
I
that.
don't know if that helps. Yeah.
No, that helps. As you write your characters and begin to love your characters, what character sticks out the most that you've written that has taught, even though you've written the character, has taught you the most about yourself?
So many, you know, and I love, you fall in love with your stuff, and I've written some, you know, really cool characters, some based on real life figures. Wrote a script about Leonardo da Vinci and Michelangelo, who were both they were brilliant, but they're very human and very flawed, and polar opposites. I will say, probably just because I'm getting a little older, the one that we're getting ready to film right now, it's called The Father. It's about a father, but now I'm not blessed to be a father, but it's one thing, the father-son dynamic is always something that has really moved me. And I think from the prodigal son to, you know, insert any kind of father matrix in a story is just fascinating to me. Writing this character, who is based on my own father, I learned a lot from, because as you get older and you see how much sacrifices like my brothers make. I'm not a father, but I see what they do. You're a father. You have.
Yeah.
I just really admire fathers. It's a hard, thankless job. Parenthood is. You know, I'm not just, you know, but my mother is in a lot of scripts also. But this one, I just learned a lot about the sacrifice, because when I was going back and thinking about my own father's life, you know, like they do. And you didn't go to, I don't know, you probably remember my Uncle Mike. He died not too long ago. He was a cop for 25 years, and he made so many sacrifices. And I remember talking to him before a long time ago. And he did pretty well. He invested well, and he retired and had his pension, and he had money, you know, not a ton, you know, but he always wanted, his dream car was a Corvette. He always wanted to get a Corvette. And I'm my mother's son. I'm like, buy one, get one, get two, get me one, you know? And we were talking, you know, he said, you know what, I can't, the kids might need that money when I'm gone, you know? And I just thought, damn, you know, the kids are growing up. Your kids are 30 now. They don't need, you know, but this guy still, he won't go get his dream car.
Yeah.
Because he might want his grandkid to have that extra money. I just thought, like, that's really beautiful, you know? So I think that character, the father, that sort of thankless, constantly thinking about your family, is something that, you know, a lot of people in this town, and me also, you get here and you're just trying to survive. Yeah. So it's me. I got to work here. I got to make rent. I got to do this. And you forget that the guy next to you is clawing. The girl next to you is waiting tables at 3 different restaurants, you know, and she's waiting for that call back. Everyone's working their butt off. And it's very easy to become self-absorbed and think of, like, I got all these problems, you know? And it was a good reminder, and it is good to know that in this town, you know, everyone's in a fight. And really all over, in any industry, everyone's in a fight. And our job is not just to get through our fight. Our job is to help others get through theirs. Sometimes it's a smile. Sometimes it's a whatever. It's a how you doing. You know, for all our connection, we're very disconnected. Yeah. And I think sometimes just a little of this, or a pat on the back or whatever, you know, is something that goes a long way. It
Yeah,
certainly does for me.
it does. It goes a long way in life. It goes a long way in business. And I think executives, especially in business,
Mm-hmm.
they need to do it more often. People want to feel like they matter. I want to
They
talk
do.
about you. I want to talk about the inspiration of your upcoming movie, The Father. Um, I can't wait to see it because your dad was a really special person in my life, as was your mom. And so, but if you had to extract one lesson from your dad and from your mom, what would it be?
My dad said something I always remember, and I have a small company right now, and I'm not a very good businessman. I got a lot of my mother in me. My father was a very good businessman, but he said, never, never trade your heart for a cash register.
Yeah.
So and that was something that always resonated with me. Um, my mother said so many wonderful things, and she was such a good person. The life lesson from my mother was just, is you got to love everybody. You got to be
Yeah.
good to everybody. Everybody who walks through your door, you have to treat like someone special.
Yeah.
And she did that, she really, I learned a lot from them in that respect, and I'm very grateful to have parents that really taught me, to think outside of myself,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think
Beautiful.
is yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'll share, growing up across the street from you, your dad, when I think of your parents, I think of your dad. I will sometimes tap into the energy of just his boldness and his strength. I always loved his character of just, just his character of just, I just felt like he had just, just natural grit, which I always loved. And,
He did.
and your mom was always the kindest human being I had ever met. I don't think she ever probably said a bad word about anybody, and my mom was kind of like, hilarious and wild and irreverent. And, like, not that she wasn't kind, but,
Yeah, yeah.
she wasn't Peggy Cuschieri kind. And so,
Uh,
and our parents were best friends. And, it was great. It was great, being
yeah.
around, your family all the time. I loved
It
it.
was. Thank you, and
Um,
save yours. Yeah.
let's talk about some of the movies that
Sure.
you've made. I'm gonna read a couple. The Undercovers, Cutthroat City, which just came out in 2020. Whistleblower, The People versus Vegas Dave documentary. You could go on and on as far as more stuff. But you are extremely accomplished in what you've done. You are and you're about to make a couple more movies. What's your favorite part of the business today?
You know what? Honestly, Jonathan, my favorite part of the business is meeting people like yourself. Even though I know you already, but I love learning about new things. I've written so many things, even when I'm up for a job, I have to do my due diligence on it. I usually have to do a one sheet or a pitch deck or something. So I'm meeting someone right now. His name is Curly Johnson. He played for the Harlem Globetrotters for 18 years.
Curly?
And yeah,
Yeah.
it's really neat. And he's telling his father. So he brought his father's story to me. His father had a really amazing story. I'm talking to the estate of Wendell Scott right now, who was the first black driver of NASCAR, long before Bubba Wallace. So to meet people in different walks of life, a lot of writers, it's interesting. They write about themselves. They write about me, and I could write a really cool memoir about growing up on Westcott, and there'd be a lot of cool characters in it.
Yeah.
But to me, the things that was interesting are people that are way out there.
Yeah.
From the undercovers, these guys that worked I'm working with Joe Pistone right now, who was the real Donnie Brasco. Season 1 was a guy named Eddie Follis who took down Haji Jimakon, the world's biggest opium dealer. Speaks fluent Thai and looks like you. I love meeting these people that I would have never had a chance to meet under other circumstances. Also, another thing too is you never know someone's story.
Yeah.
Some of the folks that I've met, like Eddie, for instance, he's a guy that you could be standing next to on the corner and you wouldn't know it. You wouldn't know, like, this guy speaks 3 languages, was number 1 in his class, number 1 Marine in his class, was the resident agent in charge of Kabul. Worked in Chinatown, worked in Hawaii, worked in Iraq. They just have such interesting lives, and it's been really neat to meet a lot of these folks.
Yeah. When you meet any of the people that you just mentioned, or other people, or when you're writing a script or writing a story or doing your research, I think part of all business, but specifically your business, is taking everything you talked about, right? The talent, the research, the, et cetera, but then you got just like the gut feeling in your soul when this is something special, right?
Yeah.
And you can't even put your finger on it, but it's almost as if I would imagine like the words kind of almost flow through you and in connection with your head, your heart, and it's just like universally just kind of channeling in a way. And so when does that happen? How do you know when that happens? And does it always have to happen to know that you got something great?
I'm going to tell a story. I love this story. Laurence Olivier was doing Hamlet off Broadway, and he had one show where he was just brilliant. He was just unbelievable. And there was a standing ovation after the show. And long after the show, he was in his dressing room crying. And someone went into the dressing room and said, are you okay? And he says, well, you were brilliant tonight. Why are you crying? And he said, I don't know how I did it. He would never be able to do that again, that performance, for me, there's obviously you're a pro at some point, and I'm lucky to come to that point where you hit your beats and you can do a good job. But a couple times it just writes itself.
Yeah.
And it's only happened twice with me. It happened with Lords of Florence, where it just, I don't know how I did that.
Yeah.
And the Father is like that too. I don't know how I did that.
Yeah.
It's you just have to be open to the Spirit.
Yeah.
And I'm always grateful for what I'm doing. But it's just like whether you're an athlete or any walk of life. Michael Jordan your jump shot's not always there. Justin Verlander didn't have his fastball every game.
No.
The cool thing is when you don't have your fastball, how are you going to get that guy out?
Yeah.
So sometimes I'm writing something, and maybe it's an assignment that I took because I got to pay rent or this, or you like it because you love what you do, but your heart's not in it.
Right.
Those are the time where you lean back on your studies, knowing the story, knowing everything, and you can muscle your way through it. And you can do it the best. All you can do is the best you can, but you're not always going to have your fastball. That's just the nature of any endeavor.
Yeah.
But if you work hard enough, if you can get it once in a while, you're doing okay.
Yeah. No, that's so true. I mean, I think everybody has gifts sometimes that they don't realize are gifts because things come so naturally to them. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I think people don't recognize that base is a lot, right? That base of that unique ability, that superpower, is something that they can bank on. And so, and with a lot of people not knowing that what they can do is special to them, I think sometimes that gets overlooked. That's where I love a movie. That's where I love, talking to you about, writing characters, because you can bring that character to life and put it on screen for people to recognize something that maybe they couldn't see. And so my question to you is, what are you so good at that took you a while to realize, hey, I'm really good at this. And this is, and not as many people as I thought are. And this is kind of how where I go back to center. This is my base.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of an esoteric thing with the way I am, but maybe I get this from my mother. I know I look for someone's pain, because if you can touch their pain, you know who they are. Why is this person the way they are? Who doesn't love them enough, or where did they fail, and what do they want because of that failure? And I would say I'm pretty good at that, just because of my mom. I know about, you know, you're looking at, if you study someone long enough, you can find out what that sore spot is, where that pain came from. And if you can touch that pain, then you have a real character that's fleshed out, that is real. And that's what people want. They want to be entertained, but they want someone that they can have empathy with. They want someone that they can identify with. Other than that, and that's why I think a lot of movies fail. They're really cool. They got cool shots in them. They got cool music. They got this or that. But you'll hear this from anybody. I don't identify with the characters. Why is that? You know?
Yeah. You know, I'm a big believer, in many ways, we teach our pain, right? And so what's your pain and how does it show up in your scripts?
I think my pain, and I guess, would be, you know, that everyone has a voice inside of them that wants to come out. And I'm not like a real gregarious person. But I can scream through my characters. Yeah. So I get to scream. I get to say, I get to be whoever I want through them. Yeah. So that's, I think maybe that's where that comes from.
I love that. I love that. Let's talk about, you know, kind of current day as we sit here, October 15, 2021. Talk a little bit about some of the movies. I know you talked about The Father, but some of the other stuff that you're doing today.
Today I'm up to write and direct a play adaptation for Death Comes to the War Poets, which is, you know, it's one of those things where I hope I get it, and maybe the good news I might get it. The bad news is I might get it, because it's going to be a real tough adaptation. We also have a documentary series called Shadow Ball. I'd love to get off the ground because I think it's real special. I think it's a real special project. And then I have one other script called Sacrament that is a favorite of mine. I have a script in Detroit that I'm looking forward to coming home. We're going to be making some offers this week, and that would be so you got to have a whole hat full of things that you're working on at the same time, because the nature of the business is you got to have a lot of arrows in your quiver. Because it's just, you know, it's just the gestation period for film is so long. The business is very difficult. It's hard to get finances. That's why actually we talked about podcasts. From inception to production to distribution in the podcast space is much quicker. You can get it out there. Whereas film, it's very expensive. It's very lengthy. Film is always the end game, and it's what I love. But I do love telling stories. So if I got to do a podcast instead, then I'll do it.
I love it. All right, you ready for a quick speed round?
Sure. I don't know how speedy I'll be, but
all right, it's okay. You don't have to be that speedy. Favorite book and why?
Catcher in the Rye, first book I ever read. Mm-hmm. Okay. I know that's kind of a cheap one. Let's see. Okay, I'm going to give you a different one.
All right. No. We go with the initial gut here.
Okay. Okay.
Best piece of wisdom you've ever received?
From my mother. Love everybody.
Yeah. Finish this sentence. Somebody who's struggling and wants to, you know, we're in a mode right now where 4 million people quit their jobs in April of 2021. This time is called the Great Resignation, with people just resigning. Many of those people are looking for jobs that are more in alignment with their values. Some of them are just looking to follow their dream and their passion and things of that nature. So finish this sentence. One thing everybody needs to do who wants to really do something that's more in alignment with their passion is
work hard.
Yeah.
Can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah, of course.
There's I'm probably gonna get in trouble for this. I'm gonna tell you anyway. You know, that there's different churches out here and stuff, and there's Scientology is obviously out here. And there's sort of an offshoot. I won't give the name of it, but there's a church that's like Scientology. It's sort of a self-help, and you know, and they have groups and all sorts of stuff. But it's the same thing. You sort of, every level costs money. Like you get to certain levels, and then, you know, it's almost like a pyramid scheme, like Scientology. Well, one incredibly wealthy person wanted to go right to the top of the pyramid. he said, I want to skip all this stuff and I want to go right to the top. So they said, okay. They said, you got money. You say, I got money. I'll pay whatever it takes. I want to meet the guy at the top, and I want to know what the secret is. So they did. He met some cushy place in Bel Air, and this is a true story too, because I know some people that were there. Went and met this incredibly wealthy person who was the guru of this faith tradition, and he sat down and he said, "This is going to cost you $100,000." Guy wrote out a check, $100,000, gave it down. Got a piece of paper. He wrote down one word. He folded it up. He handed it to him. He said, "Goodbye." Do you know what that word said?
Hard work.
Work. Yeah. $100,000. Yeah. So I would say hard work, but that's a universal thing.
That's good. Mm-hmm. It is. It takes everything is a lot of work. Define yourself in one word.
Grateful.
One person, somebody who's having trouble finding gratitude and joy. One piece of advice for that.
Try to help someone else's gratitude and joy.
Okay.
Maybe that'll help you. Yeah.
I want to talk for a minute about community. This isn't part of the speed round, but I wanted to talk about this and I forgot. I want to talk about giving back, right? Because we're talking about gratitude.
Yeah.
What part of giving back do you need to feed your own soul, when you're having all of this success? Yeah.
That's a tough one, Jonathan, because LA is not, it's very, this is an insular community. If you're working on something, it's very itinerant as far as you're going to this production, you're going to that. So you're meeting a lot of folks. I am a member of I'm not good at community. I'm a good neighbor. So I have a couple things that I do, and it does feed my soul. And I think it's incredibly important to do that, because if you don't do something for somebody else, whether it's go to a senior citizen home, go to a soup kitchen, go to a battered woman's, go to East Lake, go wherever it takes, you are going to become a vapid person. And also, just as a writer and someone who likes meeting people and likes watching characters, you got to put yourself out of your comfort zone. And one of the ways is to do that is to do things for other people.
Yeah.
And you might meet some people that you would never meet otherwise. So
I love that. One piece of advice you would give your 36-year-old self.
Be patient.
Yeah.
Be patient.
Yeah.
And that's a tough one.
Yeah. That's a tough one. Yeah. That's a tough one. And just kind of going back, I want to go back to just following your dreams for a minute. This is my last question.
Okay.
You're in your 30s, you're in Detroit, you're doing stuff you don't love, you get permission, but the courage to go to your mom and dad, and the courage to just get on that plane or get in that car and drive to California. I just want to know, what was it like how much courage did it take for you to really just make a decision, right? And what was that like? Because I think one of the hardest things people have a difficult time with is making a decision and being decisive and taking ownership and following through with themselves of what's important to them. Right. And in that moment where you had the courage to say, "Hey, Ma, talk to Dad one more time," and they said, "Go," you still didn't have to go, but you chose to go. So I want to know, my last question to you is, what was that like? Because I think that moment is inspiring to a lot of other people.
Well, there's an interesting book, and you might have read it. It's called the Hamlet Syndrome. I had read this right before I came out, actually, and it's a syndrome of basically overthinking something. Our decision is indecision because we are constantly hyper thinking about things. And I think, it's interesting. I just read this quote by Wilfred Owen. Said the same thing, that overthinking, it stops us from acting.
Yeah.
I think that's what happened to me. I think sometimes you have to have the courage not to think. You've already thought enough about it. All right. So, and if you're looking for other opinions, everyone's got a different opinion. At the end of the day, you got to plant your flag, or you got to fold tent. One of the two.
Yeah.
I will say though, as soon as when I did make that decision, I was still scared. But the second I came here, it was like I literally felt like I was exploding. I was so happy, and I honestly, the honeymoon I still am so happy. I will say though about so yes, it does take courage. It takes it. You got to act on it. But at the same time, like if it ever stops making you happy, I talked to someone the other day. These people, they look miserable.
Yeah.
It's like, are you okay? If this isn't making you happy, then don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
And then I have to because of this. I got to do it because of ABC. Well, then shut up.
Yeah.
All right, and then learn to love it and do it better. Because if you have to do it, like I don't want to say I'm lucky. I don't have a wife and kids, but I was able to have a lot of lean years. Whereas if I did have mouths to feed, there's no way. I wouldn't have made it. I could have written at night and that, but responsibility does get in the way. Life gets in the way, and that's okay. You trade, it's just like you trade one dream for a new dream.
Right.
But when this stops making you happy, then you're not doing anyone a favor being here.
Yeah.
And if you're doing it for a reason, for the wife and kids, then shut up and do it with a smile on your face. Yeah.
Right. I love it. Paul, this has been great. I love being talking to you. I love spending time with you. I love being with any Cuschieri in the world. This has been great. I wish you continued great success in everything that you're doing. I of course can't wait to see The Father, just because of my connection with your dad and your entire family. But this has been great. It's been you are incredibly inspiring. I know that you have worked your ass off to get where you are, and you have done all the fundamentals and have been tenacious and just gotten gritty and just done great things. And so it's great seeing people with huge hearts, get huge success. And so I thank you for sharing your story. If anybody wants to learn more about you, your movies and everything else, where can they connect with you?
We did talk about this a little earlier. I'm not an internet. Yeah, I'm not an internet guy, but they can get a hold of you. They can
get a hold of me. Right. If anybody wants to connect with me, and I'll make an introduction. But this was great, and thanks, Paul. But your most recent movie, I will say, is on I want to say Netflix, right?
Netflix and Amazon.
Right. Cutthroat City, well. Great movie, and so many others. Paul, it's been awesome. Thanks, man.
Thank you so much. My mother and father and your parents, I hope they're smiling where they are. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm proud of you too.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thanks, brother. Thanks, brother.
Thank you. Bye-bye.